Hey everybody, welcome to subscriber Q&A on this lovely rainy Wednesday here in Connecticut. I've been modeling and wearing my V-neck tops to see how they're fitting, and I'm still fine-tuning the length of my armhole. So make sure you join me at the end of the week on Friday for FabFit Friday, because I will be working on the dress version of this V-neck top. So I'm very excited about that. If you missed Monday's subscriber Q&A, what am I saying? Monday subscriber Q&A. If you missed my cool tools on Monday, I shared another way to use sew tights. In all of my experimenting with bias and then letting bias hang and reading more about working on the bias and learning more about working on the bias, it's very important that the fabric stretches, you know, its maximum vertical stretch when it's on the bias. And actually, it was very interesting. In my copy of Bias Cut Blueprints, I read that the authors like to use binder clips or snap tape to weight down their hems to help the fabric fall faster. And if you have a washable fabric, you can spray it with water and that will weigh down the hem. And I was thinking about it and the things that I have in my studio that I could use to weigh down my hems. And I did a quick cool tools on Monday showing using sew tights to weight down hems for, you know, around the hem on the bias. And those worked really, really well. So I was kind of excited about that. So that was my fun little thing I did on Monday. And today what I want to do is answer a subscriber's question about adding a pleat to the Sorcha Classic Slim trousers. And then I'm going to use one of my daughter's plaid jackets to show you how to, you know, I'll give you some tips for matching plaids as well, because that can get a little tricky. Hey, Lean, welcome, welcome. All right, so I have a copy of my Sorcha Classic Slim trouser here. Let me see if my camera is queued up. Oh, yeah, it is. All right, so I just want to make sure that's nice and clear. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, so I want to talk about adding a pleat to the Sorcha Classic Slim trousers. And actually, you can do this with any pants pattern. It doesn't need to be this pants pattern. It can be any pants pattern. And the cool thing about adding a pleat to your pants pattern is you will know where the pleat ends. Now, if you purchased a pair of pleated trousers, sometimes it's hard to tell where the pleat stops because, you know, you fold it and you press it and it looks nice, but it's, you know, sometimes it's not 100% obvious where that pleat ends. So when you're doing it yourself, you can decide that for yourself, and I'm going to show you that. Oh, let me just say hi. Hi, Tana. Oh, you're in the part of Florida that's safe. Oh, yes, let me just say I am thinking about all of my friends in Jacksonville, the Jacksonville ASG, my friends that live in Jacksonville. Please be safe. You know, I was watching the news this morning and the weather, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for everybody down there, because it seems like it's a pretty nasty storm. So I am sending prayers down to Jacksonville, to all of my friends down there. And even if you're not my friend, I'm sending prayers, because I want everyone to be safe. All right, so I'm glad you're safe, Tana. The weather's been so crazy this year. All right, so let's get back to this. I'm going to switch my few back here. All right, so this is the pant leg. Now here's the cool thing about this topic. Lean had actually, I'm actually answering this question for Lean. It's fun when the subscriber who asked the question actually comes to the live, because then I can see they're here. If they have questions, they could also ask me. But she was wondering if she could add a pleat to the front of her daughter's pants because she had a large amount of excess up at the waist. And my quick answer to her was, if you have a significant amount of fabric at the waist and it's too big, you could pleat it out. But you have to remember, if you pleat it out here, and I'm just going to show you. So if we make a pleat, right, that pleat or that extra fabric has to be able to travel down the pants at least, past crotch, possibly to the knee. Otherwise, it's going to just open. Like if you only have extra here, and then by the time you get to your full hip, you don't have extra, it's going to pop open really early and it's not going to be attractive. So the way you would add a pleat is you would actually, decide where the pleat is going to be on along your front waist. And, oh, excuse me, then you would draw yourself a line. And just to keep it simple, I'm going to make my pleat. Let's make my pleat where my grain line is here. I'm just going to draw myself a line. Okay. And here's the cool thing. You can decide to have the pleat end at the knee, or you can have it end at the hem, or you could have it go through the hem and you could add fullness all the way down. So there's so many options for when you're adding a pleat to something. So in the case of having it ending at the knee, what you would do is you would slash down, and you'd have to create a pivot here. So basically you'd have to cut the leg off at the knee as well. Okay. And what you would do is you would literally spread the pattern, keeping the side seams the same. So basically what's going to happen is you would spread and spread like this. And of course you would decide ahead of time how much of a pleat you're going to add up here at the top, but you would spread it at the knee, and as you spread at the knee, it's also going to open up a little bit here. So let me just show you. So let's say we spread it this much. Okay, the idea is you want to keep the pattern even at the side and inseam, so those would actually be pivots. And you spread it like this, and then you can see how much you're adding. Okay, so that's one way to do it, where you're only going to the knee, and then the fullness will stop at the knee, and then it will be the regular pant from the knee down. Hey Diane, welcome. Oh, so Lean decided, she decided she only had extra very close to the top, so she created a dart instead. And that is another thing you can do. So like if you are working on fitting your pants and you just have way too much extra along the waistline in the front, first try to smooth it off to the side and adjust your side seam. But if that screws up the drape of the leg, then you could create a dart to take up that extra. So that is an option for getting rid of extra here. So that's how you would create a pleat to the knee. Okay. And, I just want to be really clear here. You want to make sure that you're pivoting at the side and inseam. So let me zoom in so you can see that a little better. Make sure that's nice and sharp. There we go. All right, so that would be a pleat to the knee. And then I'm going to show you, I'm going to tape that back together here. And I'm going to show you how to do it all the way down to the hem. And that one we'll put into, we'll actually do that one all the way. So now let me show you how to do it all the way down. So I've taped back together my leg. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to keep slashing all the way down to the hem, and I'll create a pleat there. And see, then you can do the same thing. You're going to spread it the amount you need. So like, let's say, let me just, oh, these sticky notes aren't a different color, so that's not going to be super helpful. But basically, you can decide how far you're going to spread it open at the top, you know, and then you can fill it in with paper. So let me just use this piece of paper here to fill it in. All right, so this is how you would actually add a pleat. And you can see you can add 2 pleats if you want. Some pleated trousers have 2 pleats. So you can really add as much as you'd like in the way of, you know, added fabric to create the pleat. So basically now you can see my pleat it's almost nothing here, right? And then as you come up, it gets wider and wider. And then it gets wider and wider. I'm just coloring it in so you can see what it looks like. So here's our pleat. Okay, so that's basically what it looks like. No, okay, so Lean's asking, can you cut through the hem? And the answer is yes. If you want this fullness to go all the way down through the hem, you could actually spread the whole thing and have it be even all the way down. Or you could have it be more here and less here. You do not have to create a pleat here. You can actually have it be open, you know, and spread it all the way. So that's up to you. So either pivot here or allow it to open here as well. And keep in mind, you don't have to open it the same amount, right? You can open it a lot here and a little bit here. And I suppose you could open it more at the bottom and less at the top as well to give it more swishiness down here. So you can really do all sorts of things with this pleat. But that's how you create that. And then what you would do is you would mark on your pattern. Okay, so here you'd give yourself 2 guides up at the top, so you would know to then fold one over to the other. And one of the, oops, let me just tape it better before I do that. One of the other things to remember is when you spread your pant for a pleat, remember you really need to spread it twice the amount here, because when you fold it, you can see the pleat is actually half of whatever you spread, right? And then as it comes down, you can press it into place like that. Okay, so there's your pleat. Okay, and you can sew it down. And sometimes on some patterns, you actually sew it down a certain amount, like top stitch it shut at the very top so it doesn't pop up over your belly. So that's how you create a pleat. Hey, Victoria. Oh, you were joining late because you were having a fit with a V-neck facing. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I will be sharing how to do some V-neck neckline finishes when I get to that point on my bias sew along, because all of my bias creations have a V-neck. All right, so that's how you create the pleat. And I'm going to just show you now. I'm going to unfold this here. Let's pretend this is my finished pattern. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it out. And I'm going to cut it short. We're going to pretend we're working with shorts here because I want to have a little pattern piece that I can show you how to deal with plaids. And actually, just to keep this simple, I'm going to cut off the zipper seam allowance too. I just want a simple little pattern piece that I can show you what I do when I'm working on plaids or stripes or whatever. All right, so here is my Okay, so let's say this is the pants pattern I'm going to be cutting out of a plaid. Okay, so Vicki wants to know if that pleat makes room for a belly. Depending on where it releases, so if you sew it down like a few inches up at the top and then allow it to release, it actually will create room. You know, it will spread and open if it needs to. So it can create some camouflage for your belly. Oh, and Lean said it's very instructive. Thank you. Oh, you're entirely welcome. All right, so this is funny. Could I find a plaid fabric in my stash to show you guys how to do this? No, I couldn't. I think I avoid plaids. So this is one of my daughter's jackets, like blazers. So I'm going to use the back, and we're going to pretend this is fabric now. And basically, the way I work with a plaid, and I know it looks like it's swimming because it's, you know, it's a small pattern piece on this, you know, it's a small pattern piece on this jacket. But basically, I'm going to decide where on the plaid I'm going to use to be my matching. And generally, you want to use the most obvious details in the plaid to match, right? So to me, what stands out in this plaid are these boxes of houndstooth shapes, right? So what I'll do is I'll say, all right, I want to match this up. I'm going to consider where my tip of my crotch is. Like, I don't want to create a situation where I have a box right at the tip of my crotch, right? So I want to place the things that sew together in the center in a way where when they join with the other side, it's not going to look funny. So I wouldn't put a tip of a crotch into something that's looks like a square. So when I sew the two, it'll look like I have this little square in the front of my crotch. I don't want to do that. So I would try to position the crotch in the front with something that's less busy if I can. So if I were working with this particular plaid, what I would do is I'd probably position the center in this area. And then also, I don't want to have these bold stripes. I don't want those two bold stripes right next to each other in the center front. Like, so if my center front is right here, okay, I wouldn't put it right there because then I would have one plaid there and I would have the other plaid would be there, right? And it would make a double row of this. So I kind of planned out what I'm going to do based on the detail of the plaid. So in this case, I think I would love it if my center front were lined up with this quieter strip, right? So if I line it up like this, and if I cut it out so that, if I cut it out like this, when I sew it, oh no, like this, I'm sorry. I'm going to put it, so I've got my 1/2 inch that I'm going to sew. So when I sew it, I'm going to have half of this stripe is going to be on this side and half of this stripe is going to be on that side. So I'll measure and I'll line this center front up with wherever I can in the middle of this quiet stripe. So after I take the seam allowance out, I have half of this left so that I can then, when I sew it together and it matches up, I'll have this quiet stripe running down the center and the center front opening will be in there. So that's the first thing I consider when I'm making pants and I'm working with a plaid is what's going to be happening with my center front. After I decide that, the rest is pretty easy. What I would do here is, okay, so Lean is asking, so you choose where you want to match in the center, sides, or back. Yeah, you want to go with whatever's going to be the most obvious thing to the view, like, so what people are going to be, what's going to be drawn to your eye. So I don't want to have any funny center front stuff going on. So I always go with my center front. But then vertically like this, I can say, all right, I'm going to line this up so that this stripe is going to be in the middle of my center front. Half of it's going to be on one side, half is on the other. And then I can say to myself, all right, here's the bottom of my pocket, right? So now I can look at the stripes going this way and I can say, all right, so I'm going to line up my pants so that when I cut it out, and let me just draw another guide here so you can see. So if I draw my, let's pretend this is my seam allowance. It's a little half scale pattern, so it's not going to be exactly whatever. That's the seam allowance. So I want to have half, I'm going to line up the stitching line with this middle line right here. So when I sew it, this will be in the middle. Now the other thing I'm going to consider vertically is, where is the base of my pocket going to sit? So I think I want it to start at the intersection between these blocks, right? So we'll have it start there. So what I'll do is I will actually draw myself, I'll position it where I want it, like this. So let's say this is where I want it, because I've lined up. I know my crotch is not going to be, because remember, there's also a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, right? And a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So I've got this set up so after it's sewn, the crotch will be in the quiet box. All right, let me just stop and say hi. Hey, Amelia. Amy, hello. Good morning from California, making progress on my Sorchas. I was able to figure out the pocket after having taken in the waist, ready to tackle the fly. Excellent. I am teaching a front fly workshop for pattern review at 3 o'clock today. So if anybody would like to join me for that, you can, head over there and sign up for that and see me again at 3 o'clock. So I'll be showing how to sew the Sorcha Classic Slim Trouser zipper and a jean zipper, and talking about the difference between cut on fly and separate fly pieces. All right, so Lean says better to cut on single fabric than mirror the two pattern pieces. Yes, I'm going to talk about that in a second, Lean. So basically, once you get it into the position you want, and I'm going to pretend this is where I want it, so you can see I'm lining it up so that the base of my pocket is lined up with this stripe right here. My seam allowance is lined up with this center of this block. Then I'm going to just take some small pattern weights and I'm going to weight them down. So I do have my little minis here that I can use. All right, so I've got this weighted down where it's going to be. Then what I'm going to do, before I cut it out, I'm going to draw myself some guidelines. So I'm going to just draw here and here. So I'm basically marking all of the intersections of that plaid stripe that I'm using as a guide. So I've got one here. Whoops. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm just marking all the places on the plaid where it matches that particular stripe I'm working with. So it's here, it's here, it's here, and it comes into my inseam right here. So see right here, it's a bracket because that's where it meets vertically and horizontally. I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing here. So anywhere, whatever you're using in the plaid to help guide you, and I'm using this subtle stripe right here, the subtle one right here, I've marked, right? So after I cut it out, what I'm going to do is when I turn it over, I'm going to make sure I then find a place in my plaid where I can line it up the exact same way, right? So I would line it up so that Here's this mark, this mark, this mark, this. There's my verticals. I'm just transferring through my verticals, right? So I can line it up again, making sure the pocket itself is at the top of the block there, and it's all matched up. And the thing is, you have to find the spot in the plaid where it's going to meet at this horizontal. This one right here is the important one, because that's where it matched. That's where we have to make sure it matches horizontally and vertically, like this. And then you can see I've got it all lined back up. You can see that my vertical and my horizontal, oops, wait a minute, it's like this, sorry. My vertical and my horizontal are matching there. I've got matching, 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 matching. Like that. I'm just playing with it to make sure everything matches. You know, and then once I've got those all matching, I would cut those out. Okay. Oh, Diane says, please don't get Sharpie on that jacket. I know. And here's the funny thing, she hasn't even worn it yet. Still has the tag on it. So that's how you do it. Now, here's another thing. If you're working with a stable plaid, you can take the cutout front leg, put it right sides together on the plaid fabric and move it around till all the edges match as well. So that's another way that you can match plaids. So either mark the key areas so when you flip it, you can match them, or if it's a piece of fabric that you can lay straight, don't do it on something soft and drapey because you'll never get it back into its exact shape. But if it's a stable fabric, you can actually lay the piece you cut out right sides together with your plaid and cut out the second one. So Lean said you cut on a single layer of fabric. You never cut double layer when you're trying to match plaids or stripes because you can't tell if it's folded exactly even with each other through the, you know, through the fold, because you can't see the lower layer. So that's my tip for matching plaids and stripes. Does anybody have any questions about that? I need to make this a short one because I want to finish prepping and sewing together a sample for my class at 3. So I do need to leave a little early today. But I want you guys can be the first to see something very exciting. Well, you can't really see it, but look what was on my steps, my front steps yesterday. This is my new Sew Tights magnetic cutting system. So I will be unboxing and reviewing this for Monday's Cool Tools video. So be sure to check in for that, because if you use my affiliate link with Sew Tights, you get a significant discount on this. So please join me on Monday. It'll be an upload, but it'll be available at 6:00 p.m. Monday afternoon or evening, and you can see me unbox this Sew Tights magnetic cutting system. It really is amazing. I put a link if you want to pre-order it. They still are taking pre-orders. They're not available in stores yet, but I am so excited about this thing. Once I get it open and once I share it with you, I will also be creating a project to maximize its use. So this is what I will be doing on cool tools for Monday. Very excited about that. So I thought I would just share that with you. It's killing me not to open it until I can set up and shoot the unboxing. So just so you know, I really am excited about this. All right, so that was my fun for today. If anybody has any questions or comments about matching plaids, adding a pleat to their pants pattern, please let me know. I will help you. Join me Friday. I'm going to be moving on to the dress version of this. You know, the funny thing is, the more I take this on and off, the better it's fitting onto me. So I almost feel like when you're working on the bias, letting the fabric mold to your actual shape really helps the fit of it. I'm not getting the crinkly wrinkles here anymore because I think it is stretched and lengthened. And I had it on my ditto form, which is a little bit bigger than me actually through the bust. So it's just been a fun journey to watch every time I put this on after having it on my ditto form with the big bust, that it's stretching to conform to my shape. Because look at how nice it fits now. Like, it fits perfect. And I haven't changed anything with the armhole. This is still the one I worked on from before. So I'm trying to make a final decision on how I'm going to adjust my armhole before I start working on the dress pattern. But join me Friday for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's everything I wanted to talk about for now. If anybody is joining me for the front fly zipper workshop, I will see you in an hour and a half over on Pattern Review on Zoom. So I always love it when I get together with you guys and, you know, visit with you guys. And then if I get to teach, it's always a great day. So, oh, hi, Linda. You just logged in. You'll have to watch the replay. Okay, I showed how to make a pleat, and then I showed how to match a plaid. That's what I did today. So it was a fun little thing. I do have to jump off though, because like I said, I want to make sure I have everything perfect for this class. And also, if you're wondering why take a class from me, I give a lot of free content on my YouTube channel. And the difference between the content I'm sharing with you on my YouTube channel versus when I teach a class is the class is a little bit more involved, and it's a little bit more organized, and it's a little bit more complete. When I show things on my YouTube channel, sometimes you have to jump around and find all the pieces to get to do the process or whatnot. But so when I teach this front fly workshop, I'm going to show how to finish edges. I'm going to show the difference between the cut-on version versus the fly pieces. And I saw this really slick zipper and front fly zipper insertion on Instagram. So I'm going to try that too if I have time before the class starts, and I might share that as well. So, so taking the classes from me are also of value because you really get a more organized, high quality instruction on the topic. So if anyone's wondering about that, that's, you know, I try to give a lot of things away for free, but also I have to pay the mortgage. So I have to do some classes. But anyway, I loved hanging out with you guys. I will see you on Friday for FabFit Friday. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for joining me as always. I'm going to sign off now because I'm starting to ramble. Talk to you later. Bye.